Hey, what is going on, everybody? How are you all doing today? I hope you all are having a wonderful and fantastic day today, and if not, hopefully you all will have a better tomorrow. So, today is the first review of 2019, RWBY Volume 6, Chapter 9, Lost. And I have to say, this is a review I've been waiting to do for a week. I have watched this multiple times, and I am actually excited to do this review. So, sit back, relax, I hope you all enjoy. Let's go ahead and get started. So this chapter starts off with Emerald, and she actually hates being left in the dark on the situation of what's going on. Mercury makes a statement that he agrees, while at the same time he thinks that Cinder herself was a pain. But to him, at least, they did stay informed. So then, this leaves Emerald to really question Mercury as to why he actually joined them. So Emerald asks Mercury the question of why he joined Cinder and Emerald when they were looking for Marcus Black, his father. And so he states that he believed that it was just meant to be, that they were looking for someone of his skills, and from the time that he was young, he was trained to be an assassin, and so he believed that it was just destined to happen, that this was his calling to actually join Cinder and Emerald, since they were looking for someone of his skills. So that's why he actually decided to join. So then Emerald goes on to actually ask Mercury what it is that he wants out of this. What is it that he's fighting for? Is there something? Because to her, she believed that he should be fighting for something, that there should be some cause that leads him to want to fight for Salem and Cinder's side. And so that's when Mercury just comes out and says, oh yeah, I'm just really doing this because Salem's promised us everything, because, why not? We're going to be the top dogs in the new world that Salem is going to create, so might as well, right? So it really tells you that Mercury's just really in it to really be something. It's really more so the fact that he feels he's meant to be within this area. This is his calling, and that he doesn't really care about anything else. That being a top dog in the new world that Salem's created and promising them everything is all that really matters to him in the end. So then Emerald herself really starts to question things. She starts to question if what they're doing is the right thing. She wonders, because Cinder herself taught Emerald things, she cared about Emerald, and as Emerald even stated in Volume 5, that Cinder gave her everything, and that her allegiance is really to Cinder, and that she doesn't care about Salem. Not only this, but Cinder is family to her, and she even states this. And then that's when Mercury states that Emerald needs to wake up, that Cinder doesn't care about either one of them, and that if Emerald is having an identity crisis moment, that he doesn't want to be a part of it. So then that's what starts to create a brawl between the two of them, because Emerald states that Mercury doesn't know what he's talking about. And so what we actually get out of this is a fight between Emerald and Mercury, but it's not really a fight to the death per se. It's more of a sibling-like fight, as if they are brother and sister. And Mercury goes on to explain his backstory about while Emerald didn't have a mommy that loved her, Mercury actually had a father that hated him, and that their training sessions were more so beatings than they were training sessions, and that when Mercury actually did gain his semblance, his father took it away with his own semblance. So that's interesting to know, that his father's semblance was capable of stealing other semblances. So Mercury was really just left without one, and that his father told him once he became strong enough, then he would give him his semblance back. And basically, he told him that his semblance actually made him weak, and that it was nothing more than a crutch. So Mercury himself trained harder than anybody to get where he is now, and even though he killed his own father, he never did gain his semblance back. And that's actually an interesting story, because if you think about it, usually it's the protagonists that have to train and train and train because there might be some kind of issue, and considering that Mercury is disabled in the area that he can't use a semblance because he doesn't have one anymore, that's pretty unique that they actually made an antagonist character rather than a protagonist actually be the character to train to be the best, to make up for the loss of something that they don't have. I actually like this idea that they went with Mercury here. It's a unique idea that's usually not put upon antagonists normally. So I like that. Then Tyrion jumps in, of course. He talks about how Mercury has really only experienced a mean and cruel world, and that because of him being attached to his pain that he's gone through, that he doesn't want to let it go, that because that's all he's ever really known. He doesn't want to be vulnerable. He doesn't want to show a weak side. So he stays attached to that pain of violence that he grew up in, that he always knew. And it's true, really. This is something that Tyrion actually brings up a good point about when it comes to Mercury, that he's someone who doesn't want to be vulnerable. So rather than saying, oh, I want to have a family too, and someone that cares, he tries to put it up that he's strong and that he doesn't really care about things like that. So that's really what Mercury goes by. But then he gets upset, tries to attack Tyrion, and Tyrion just swats Mercury down. And so he says that he wants to let Emerald and Mercury in on a little secret, and that their question is all wrong. And that it's not from what they can gain from this, but rather, if they're not enjoying what they're doing, then they may not be doing the right profession. And so this is where Emerald then asks, well, then are you saying that we're supposed to leave if we're not enjoying this? And he says, oh no, you can't do that. So Mercury asks what he actually came here for, and he basically just states that, I just came to say farewell, and that we are going to Atlas, because if Ironwood comes to his senses, then he may try to get aid for Vacuo. So that means that Tyrion and Watts are going to Atlas. Now this is something I actually wanted to really have happen, because I felt like we needed to see Tyrion and Watts be more in action. Now, we did see Tyrion fight before, and it would be good to see him fight again, but Watts is still someone that his abilities are very well unknown, other than him being a scientist and obviously repairing Tyrion's tail. And as Emerald is asking Tyrion what he means by this, well, yeah, we just have to know that they're preparing for war at Atlas, apparently. That's about it. We don't exactly know anything aside from they're just preparing to take on Ironwood. So, yeah, another cut moment. But Tyrion did at least say that he hoped that the children would do what made them happy. And then he leaves. And that's all we really get from Emerald and Mercury. Now, the next scene, we get Team Juniper and then Saffron searching for Oscar. And one statement I actually did like was when Jon said that he overreacted, which I agree. I think personally he did overreact in the last chapter. So it's good to see that he is aware that he did do something wrong. So I like that. So Saffron asked if it had to do with their mission, and Jon explains that they did get some very vital information that makes their mission more difficult to actually achieve. And since Team Juniper is unsure of what to do at the time being, that's when Saffron tries to insist that they should stay and try to go to the academy and try to get their hunter licenses. Now, that's when Jon says that it's more complicated than that. So then that's when Saffron has to go pick up Adrian from daycare. So while she goes off, that's when Nora decides that they should probably try to get something to warm them up. So she offers to actually go to a cafe that's nearby, and Jon doesn't want anything. So it shows you that he is down on what happened, and I actually do like this. But when Nora and Ren leave, there's something that goes on. So Jon sits down and he notices that there is a leaf, and it's actually just kind of floating around, and it seems like it's trying to lead Jon somewhere. And so Jon actually follows this leaf, and this takes him to a particular little place. Now, this little place is actually a memorial that was just recently made, apparently. And so if you look at the sign that the leaf goes into, this little parkway, the sign says, "New memorial now open." And this is something that is pretty interesting to me, and I love this moment. This moment is a great moment. Aside from the Mercury and Emerald moment at the beginning, which I thought was very good in itself, and I'll get more to in a moment, this moment leads Jon to confront something. Confront a part of his past. And this is something that I think has been needing to happen for quite some time. Now, I'll say this, I'm surprised that this even was brought up, because I personally thought that this had been forgotten by the writers. I thought this was something that they were never going to do. And so what we actually see is a monument to Pyrrha. This actually shocked me because I did not think they were going to do anything like this at all. I did not think they would have any type of memorial to Pyrrha at all. I didn't think that they would do anything for Jean other than potentially just bring her up in conversation, considering that's really the only case that they've done. They've never done anything too huge for Jean since Pyrrha died, other than whenever he was training in the middle of the night in Volume 4. And even the plaque, it says, in honor of Pyrrha Nikos, one of the many students who fought valiantly at the fall of Beacon. And this is a good nod to Pyrrha, and it's also a pretty heartfelt moment for the fans, as well as it is for Jean's character. And there's a new song that starts playing for this moment called Forever Fall, and here are some of the lyrics. Once like a dream, you looked at me, and everything felt new. Some people fall in love for life, others never get it right. Love's fickle when it calls. One thing that I know for sure, longer than our lives endure, you're my forever fall. Those are the lyrics that we did get out of this, and to top that off, there was a red-haired woman that was actually here for this moment, that was at this monument, and she states that it's beautiful, isn't it? Jean then responds with, yeah, but why here? And the woman states that Pyrrha actually trained here, that she went to Sanctum, and then whenever it was time for her to choose, instead of staying at Haven, she decided to go to Beacon, which it did upset people, but ultimately this woman was happy that Pyrrha was surrounded by good friends and people that cared about her. And when you think about this moment, it's a very endearing moment. It's a very special moment, and I have to say that I like this for Jean. And it seems that whenever he is talking to this woman, he comes to a realization, because this woman does look very similar to Pyrrha. It seems like he's caught on to who this woman actually is. And it seems like this is a very touching and hard moment for Jean when he starts to realize who this woman actually is. And Jean states that she should be standing here with them, and the woman states, oh, she is. And that she believes that Pyrrha would never have regretted the choice that she actually made, that she had a responsibility, and that even though she had a responsibility, that hunters themselves don't really have a choice in the matter. Well, one thing about this is she had a choice, and she chose to go with Ozpin, really, if you think about it, because he said that it was up to her to decide whether she wanted to do this or not. But the thing about Pyrrha was she felt that it was her destiny to be a huntress. And she did what she felt was right. So she chose to be a hero in the end, because Pyrrha was a selfless character. She thought of others before herself, and ultimately, yes, she may have died, but she did die trying to be a huntress, something that she believed in. Now, yeah, while it is a part of Ozpin's manipulation, since he was the one who came up with the hunter program in the first place, it's something that Pyrrha herself heavily believed in, and she died as a hero. And so, what I like that Jean says here is that even though she never graduated, she was a huntress in the end, and you can see that the woman is very touched by this moment, and she says thank you. And I will say this, I was very afraid that they wouldn't throw this character in. Now, why is it that I'm saying that they throw this character in, as if I expected this to eventually happen? That's because Carey himself, back in an RTX after Volume 3 had ended, mentioned that Pyrrha's mother would eventually be in the series, and this woman is actually Pyrrha's mother. That's who this is supposed to be, and not only that, but even though she's credited as the red-haired woman, she is voiced by Jen Brown. Now, why is that important? Because if you may not already know, Jen Brown was also the voice of Pyrrha. So, yes, this is actually Pyrrha's mother, and I'm glad that they finally threw her in. I was so afraid that they were never going to do this. This was a good thing that they did. Now, I also like what they did for Team Juniper here, because this works within Jean's development. Lyrin tells Jean that this needs to stop, and that Nora states Jean has been too hard on himself and that they know what he said to Cinder. And if you know me, I hated what Jean said to Cinder. I think that was one of the worst speeches in the entire series. I personally did not like that speech at all. And I'm very glad because Jean himself realized he had been a bad leader and a bad friend. I'm glad that he is accepting that because I had problems with him in volumes 4 and 5. I like volumes 1 through 3 Jean. I don't like volumes 4 and 5. But this moment made me like Jean again. This was a moment that was good, not just for Jean, but this was a moment that was good for Team Juniper in general because they knew that Pyrrha always gave it her all, that she always did her best, and Nora states that they should fight as if Pyrrha is still with them even though she's not anymore. And then Jean said, yeah, but she still is in a way. And yeah, you could say so. And I'm very glad that they really did this. I'm glad that this scene was here. I love the scene. I love the development for Team Juniper. I love the development for Jean. And I'm glad that we actually got to have Pyrrha's mother finally. This is something that people had been waiting for. I was so terrified that they decided to cut this out. They didn't. And this was a good memorial to Pyrrha's character, and I really did like this scene. I really love what they did, and I love the song. They really put their all into this moment for Pyrrha, and I really love it. And then we pan back to RWBY, and, well, Team RWBY is right in front of Saffron and Terracotta's house, and, well, what they see is not something that RWBY particularly likes. Yang even states herself that she's never seen Uncle Crow be this bad, because Crow himself is drunk, laying out on the staircase because he passed out. And so that's the big thing here. Crow got so drunk he was out all day. Well, this is kind of expected, but since everything that's gone on in this volume and Crow discovering the truth that Ozpin had hidden from him, Crow has been fighting for Ozpin ever since he was the age of Team RWBY and their members. He has been doing this and made to believe that what he was doing was right. And for him to drink this entire time because of how depressed he is, it's sad, but I understand where he's coming from here because everything he'd been doing was a lie. He had been manipulated by Ozpin to believing what he was doing was right. And it's really sad to see Crow this out of it and this depressed, but it's understandable because everything he knew just crumbled right in front of him, and that's a very sad thing. But RWBY was building up some anger here as well, and you can definitely see it, and then that's when Team Juniper comes by, and they still haven't been successful on finding Oscar, so they're still questioning where Oscar is, and that's when it's actually mentioned that they're not going to go to Atlas without Oscar. And so this is good because before this, it was very shaky on what Juniper was going to do. I think we all knew that Team Juniper was still going to go with them anyways, but it's glad that they confirmed that they're not going anywhere and that they've come to accept what they're fighting for at this point. So then you have Oscar, who is actually opening the door. So he never really did run away. Ironically enough, he actually just went to get some clothes and to look better, because I actually like this costume change. I think that it looks better than just the casual farm boy look. I think that he actually looks like he's suited for war. I think this is War Master Oscar now. I really kind of like the idea behind that. War Master Oscar. I like it. But everybody is very excited to see him, and this scene is like a cartoony scene that they had back in Volume 5. You remember the punching scene that Yang did in Chapter 1 of Volume 5 to the bandit, and he goes bouncing around. That was probably one of the worst animated scenes in my opinion. But I actually like this one because it shows that everybody's concerned for Oscar and that they care about him. And what I like about this that comes up next is that Jean apologizes for the way that he acted towards Oscar. Like I said, this chapter actually made me start to like Jean again, because he starts to feel like the old Jean again. And I think this is an improvement. I really like what they did here for Jean. I'm happy that he actually apologized to Oscar. I think that was a very good thing here. Now, one thing that stands out to me here is that when Oscar starts talking to everybody about how he just been thinking about things, one thing here is that Oscar mentions that he's going to try his best for everybody and be here, and this is while he's still himself, because he doesn't know how much longer he's going to be himself. Now, this is strange because it kind of makes the backstory in Chapter 3 feel disjointed, because with him stating that he doesn't know how much longer he's going to be himself and that he's going to be there, this is strange to me because in the backstory itself, the God of Light stated that Ozpin would always have someone with him at all times, and now it feels like it's going back to the whole idea of what this started from, which was the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde idea of Ozpin just eventually taking over the body of the individual. Now, this is something that stood out to me and it felt weird. I'm going to talk a little more about it in just a moment, but now Crow himself is trying to basically get away from everybody because he doesn't really care. He's not in a good mood. He's depressed over everything, and that he's discovered lately. And so RWBY asked him where he's going because Crow had not been around all day. He'd just been out getting drunk, and that since there was no way to get into Atlas, he just basically gave up hope. And so then that's when John states that he has a plan, and that his plan, which is a very insane one, mind you, his plan actually is to steal a ship and fly over and into Solitas. And that's insane because they're dealing with the Atlas military, and Jean also coming up with the idea of, hey look, let's just steal a ship from the Atlas military and fly over through the border that way. Yeah, that is insane, and I have to agree with Crow here on this one, that Crow states that this is a crazy plan, that they are dealing with something more than just, anything average. That this is the Atlas military. This is a strong force that they are up against, that it would be more than just, being illegal. This would be the fact of ruining everybody's lives. And I'm just thinking, wow, this is crazy. And then RWBY actually goes off, and what RWBY actually states is that they don't need adults. Okay, so here's the thing. Adults have actually turned out to be the ones to save Team RWBY in the end before. Now, if you go back to when they actually had the incident with Torchwick and how he led the Grimm to Vale, yeah, that was the thing. Atlas military took care of that. And then you have Crow in Volume 4, who was actually there killing the Grimm. That's why they didn't encounter very many Grimm on their road to Mistral. And that's because he was actually watching their backs. He was protecting them. So it's odd to me that RWBY would sit here in her speech and state that, oh yeah, just because you don't have a plan, we don't need any adults, we can do it ourselves. RWBY, sometimes your speeches are okay, sometimes they're very off. But overall, this chapter was one that I really enjoyed. I think that this was fantastic. And the more that I go through this, the writing for this chapter was good. I really enjoyed this chapter a lot, and several reasons. I like the Mercury and Emerald speech that they had, because one big thing about that, and I'll talk about that first, that actually goes back to the song I'm the One. When looking at I'm the One, it tells you the backstory through the song of Emerald Mercury. Looking at some of the lyrics, like I'm the one that was born on a nightmare, a murderer's son, or I'm the one who rose out of filth and was loved by no one. The murderer's son part is obviously Mercury, and the one who rose out of filth and was loved by no one is Emerald. Thus, Emerald actually talking about how Cinder was her only family, and Mercury talking about how his father was the one who had training sessions that were basically just beatings. Well, that also goes back to I'm the One yet again. I'm the one that was ripped from the earth and exposed to the sun by the hate and the beatings defiled by a father. So you see, I'm the One had really already told us the backstory of Emerald and Mercury, and then here we are now actually having the characters talk about it. And I like this. I like that they went back to I'm the One and did that. That is great. And I've talked about the song before. I've covered the meaning behind I'm the One. And I have to say, I love that they captured what that song was telling us. So that was great. And so I do like this conversation. It shows Mercury's vulnerability. It shows that even though he is someone who would rather be cared about, he doesn't want to show it because all he's ever known is pain and violence, and that's what he sticks to. Even Tyrion states that, which kind of ruined that moment, but it shows you that Tyrion's not an idiot and that he actually is smart and he picks up on things. So, to a degree, I did like that too, showing that he is an intelligent character and that he picks up on others around him. So, I am like, yeah, I like this, and then, yeah, I feel like it kind of spoiled the moment because it pretty much just explained, hey, this is what you just learned about Mercury. Hey, Tyrion's gonna go ahead and tell you anyways. Thank you, Captain Obvious. But I'm glad they also did do something with Mercury, and this is something that I even made a video on also, is how I hope that they would let us see Mercury's perspective on Cinder being gone, and yeah, I like that. I like that he actually is giving his opinion a little bit more. That's good because he hadn't really talked or done much within volumes 4 or 5, especially 5 when he had the opportunity to talk and fight. He didn't do anything. So now that he's actually getting some screen time for just, even if it's a little bit, that's good. At least he's able to talk and have some personality, have a little bit of depth to him. Good. I like that. And also considering that they made him train. That is really cool because even though he doesn't have a semblance, he tries to make up with that for actual power, for actual training, and trying to be the best. I like that. That's a great motive for a character, and it's interesting to see an antagonist of all characters actually have a motive like that. So I think that that was very well thought out, and I appreciate that. Now, the next thing that I do want to talk about is Watts and Tyrion going to Atlas. I like this because I want Watts and Tyrion to be more involved in the plot. I mean, eventually, yes, they were going to be, but it's good to finally see them make their move. Because, yes, while we have seen Tyrion actually fight, which was back in Volume 4, he hasn't done anything since that moment. And Watts, yeah, while we know he's a scientist, and he did construct Tyrion another new tail, considering that in Volume 5 he stated that Tyrion had lost his tail again. So, it tells you that Watts is finally going to get involved. I'm glad that we're finally going to get to actually see Watts in action next volume. It certainly won't be this volume, but I'm hoping that it will be next volume, and that will be really interesting to see how he actually is as a character on the battlegrounds. So, I really hope to see good things out of Watts. And so, now, looking at the big moment, which was Jean's development, and the tribute to Pyrrha. I really do enjoy that they did this. I'm glad that they involved Pyrrha's mother because I was so afraid that they totally forgot about her. I was thinking, well, they said they were going to do it years ago and then they probably forgot. So I'm glad that they didn't throw her away and just think, no, we're never going to have her involved at all when Carrie brought it up in an RTX years ago. So good. I'm very glad. This is something that they needed to do. And I love that Jean comes to terms that he hasn't been a good leader and that he hasn't been a good friend. I'm glad. I'm glad that he's accepted his faults, that he has had problems, and that he is trying to move forward from them now. This is good. This is the closure that he needed, and I appreciate this. I do like this. I like that he even apologized to Oscar. I think that this was good for his character. And going forward, I hope that they really stick him to being who he used to be. I mean, yeah, they can mature him a bit, but I was never a big fan of the angsty, anger personality Jean had. And I also didn't like that it seemed like he stole the spotlight from RWBY in volumes 4 and 5, because he got tons of attention, but it didn't really feel like his character got development when he got that attention. So I wasn't a fan at all of Jean then. But I think now, with this chapter, it made me like him again. It made me feel like we're getting the Jean of old, that we're getting good development out of Jean, and that he's going to move forward in the future. And that's what I hope they do. I hope that this conclusion to Pyrrha and everything here does help him develop as a character. I want to see him grow, but I don't want to see him be what he was in volumes 4 and 5. I want to see him be a better character than that. And I really did enjoy this. And the song Forever Fall was just a beautiful song for what we got. I mean, I can't wait for the whole thing, but just for the brief bit of the song that we did get, I did actually enjoy that. So it was very nice, and I think that this paid tribute here to Pyrrha and throwing in her mother and everything to this was great. I do really very much so enjoy it. And I'm glad that Team Juniper has decided they're going to give their all now, which I think they should have the whole time, because I would think that if you're trying to save the world, you would always give your best. But, you know, I would just think that they would have always given their best. But it's good to see that they have decided that they're going to stick with Team RWBY, which, like I said, I think we all saw that coming, though. But is good. And I'm glad that even Team Juniper got this little moment here. So it was very nice, and I really enjoyed it. Now, another thing I want to talk about is with this scene, I had a problem with the part where they said that it was not a choice. Pyrrha had a choice. Crow himself in Volume 4, Chapter 8 stated that she was given a choice. And her choice was to actually fight for Ozpin because she believed that was the right thing to do. She believed that that was what it was meant to be a huntress, was to save others. She had the choice to either not fall into Ozpin's group or to do it, and she decided she was going to. So, really, it was a choice in the end. So I think they're wrong there on that one. But for what it was, I love this scene. I think that this scene was still great overall. And looking at it, moving forward yet again, the Oscar scene. Now, this is another one I had a problem with because, like I stated, it makes the backstory feel disjointed that occurred in Volume 6, Chapter 3. Because the God of Light stated that Ozpin would always be reincarnated and always have someone with him, but then Oscar states that he doesn't know how much longer he's going to be himself, and that he's going to give his all until he's gone, basically. So it's like they're stating that, hey, you know, in the backstory, you're going to have someone, Ozpin, and then it goes to the whole original idea of Oscar's going to eventually lose who he is, and Ozpin's going to take over his body. And so that means that the statement RWBY even made in Chapter 4, Volume 6, the statement she made there was, oh, you're your own person, you don't have to worry about that, you can live your own life the way you want. And then Crow tells her, don't lie to him, RWBY, you know better than that. Well, that's the thing. It's at that point basically stating that Oscar is not going to be Oscar forever. That eventually Ozpin is going to take over, and that is still going to happen. So to me, that's really strange that they go from that as the original idea to the backstory changing that idea back to, yeah, Oscar's going to eventually just fade away, and Ozpin will be all that's left. So it's weird that they did that. That's something I noticed as well. But aside from those couple of problems, this chapter for the most part was really great, and I just love the majority of it. Oh, and one more thing was RWBY. Can't forget that one. And her speech about how they don't need adults. There were adults that have saved Team RWBY in the past. It's kind of funny that she makes the statement that they don't need any adults, that they'll do it their way that they have before. So, yeah, they've had adults help them, like Oobleck, for example, Atlas Military, and Crow did help them throughout Volume 4. That's why they didn't encounter any Grimm. So, yeah, that's another problem I did notice. I think that she could have worded that differently by stating that they needed Crow's help, but not when he's drunk, maybe. Maybe that could have been one way. Or that just because he doesn't have any hope doesn't mean that they don't. I just think that RWBY's speech could have been just a tad bit different there, because there are times where RWBY's speeches actually hit it well, and then there are moments where it doesn't hit home at all. So I think that moment really didn't make any sense. I think that RWBY was kind of off there. Like I said, they've had adults help them in the past, so yeah, that's where I think she was off there. But aside from that, if I had to give this chapter anything, it's got to be an 8.5 out of 10, because for the most part, this chapter was very good. I like a lot of the things they threw in here, and it was just, for the most part, it felt like an old volumes 1 through 3 chapter. It felt very good and was well written, in the most part, in my opinion. But anyways, I'll be back again on Tuesday. Let me know what you think down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments down below. But anyways, thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did enjoy, hit the video with a like, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and share this with your friends if you found this informative or useful. Well, anyways, I hope you all have yourselves a wonderful and fantastic day today, and remember, if today was not a good day, tomorrow could always be better. Take care of yourselves and everyone around you, and have yourselves a good one out there, everybody.